Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Tuesday, March 3rd, as Toronto Blue Jays spring training continues to chug along. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And today we are joined by a very special guest. It is one of our favorites. It is Mitch Bannon, Blue Jays beat writer at The Athletic and host of Blue Bird Territory. Mitch, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. How was your off season? I'm sure very short before you were back down there in Dunedin.
It was short. Yeah, sorry, I'm coming in on the podcast game against you guys. I'm gonna have to not be a guest anymore with the new pod. But the my off season was good. It was good. It was good to I don't know. Like a lot of the last year was my first year doing like the full time, lots of travel beat, and so yeah, the off season was short. But I feel for like the Dodgers writers who've been doing this for a long time and like do this every single year. I feel for like the other Jays writers who have had 6 or 7 seasons before this and then they get the short off season. So I'm the last person who can complain, I think.
Have you like asked any of the Dodgers beat writers for tips, or you're reaching out to them being like, well, how do you kind of bounce back so quick or anything like
Yeah,
that?
but the thing is, like a lot of the people who do this say like, don't be afraid to like not travel as much in the first half. Like use your budget and like take some time off, like be with your family, like do all that stuff. And it's like baseball season starts and like I just want to be around the team.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
I gotta hold
exactly, right?
myself back. Yeah, exactly. It's like I just want to get after it. I want to get on the road. The team's good. They're fun. I know no team, even the Dodgers, are not going to be good and fun forever. So it's like be around the team as much as possible now, cover them as best as I can now, and I'll
Well, I mean,
slowly
I
put them
guess the
dead.
obvious, I guess the obvious follow up to that in that case is just being around the team in the early going here. What's the vibe been like?
It's kind of like business as usual. Like it was pretty chill. So I was down in Dunedin for the first 2 weeks of spring training, first couple games. I'm back up home now before I go back down for the last little bit. But it it was weird not having like Chris Bassett there and the weird will they won't they with Max Scherzer. Like to me it felt like I was looking in the parking lot every single day seeing when this guy was going to roll in, and turns out he rolled in a little after I arrived. But it was weird not having those big personalities there, but for the rest it seemed kind of normal. Like the a lot of guys were there early. It was the same kind of like laughing on the backfield, joking, getting to work. Like there's a couple new faces, but the vibe it seems very similar to last year.
So kind of along with, obviously getting back out there and seeing guys kind of in best shape of their life season as before the games got underway. Kind of what were you entering spring training most excited to learn about, and kind of the story that you were most interested to learn as the season got back underway?
I think it was Kazuma Okamoto, and it wasn't really close. Like he was just like the big unknown question mark for me entering spring because I've never seen him play a big league game. Nobody's ever seen him play a big league game, but also like a lot. But I arrived in spring before they made the Jesus Sanchez trade, and so like he was the only offensive addition. They lost Bo Bichette, they brought in Okamoto. It's not like this guy is like single-handedly expected to pick up the slack of one of the best hitters in baseball, but like it's clear they have trust in him to be a good baseball player. And like reading reports and like talking to people around the game, like there were some teams that like were a little skeptical on him as a third baseman, and the Jays seemed like the high team on him at third base. So I was really interested to watch how he fared there and also get like an idea of how they were going to use him. Like part of me when they signed him, I thought maybe he'd be like a weak side platoon third baseman, play a little at
Yeah.
first, maybe like even dabble in the outfield, but it kind of sounds by now that he's going to have to play himself off of being like basically an everyday third baseman. And that's really interesting. Like he's really fun. He's just like a fun player too. He's got like the 15 Japanese media following him around. It adds like a different element to spring. The fact that he seems like a pretty like passive guy, and then every so often he'll like say something and all the Japanese media will laugh, and then we have to like wait 15 seconds for it to be interpreted. Like it just like adds a little excitement to the day on top of the fact that he's like a really interesting and an unknown big leaguer now.
Well, it's
The
it's also fun, just the as you mentioned the media following him, but even to that, there's definitely this kind of newness about it as you kind of alluded to, where there's such a mystery box of is he not kind of the answer here to the question of who is Bo Bichette's replacement.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like in a way I see him like he could be kind of like the perfect plug and play replacement. Like he's got the bat to ball skills, like he makes a ton of contact and he can pop 25 big league homers in a great season. So it's like there is a lot of Bo Bichette there. Do I think he's gonna be Bo Bichette instantly? Probably not. But he's also like the same kind of like passive stoic that Bo Bichette was, which is an interesting like clubhouse replacement. And I think he is like one of the there is like obviously that what happens with George Springer this year, what happens with Addison Barger. There's a lot of like how do they compare to last year? But in terms of like shiny new toys, Okamoto is kind of it.
How do you feel that? I mean, obviously the transition has gone very well for him so far in spring training. I think he's hitting above 300, and obviously we saw the big homer he hits off Clay Holmes. But how do you kind of feel that the transition for him will go once the regular season starts?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting like to see how he really fares against high velo fastballs. Like I think the Holmes one was it was in against either a sinker or slider at the bottom of the zone, and like he was
Yeah.
all over that pitch. And I that's like a pitch he sees or saw a decent amount in Japan. I
Okay.
am curious how he's going to fare against like 99 on the black at the top of the zone. Now that's like a really hard pitch for very good hitters to face, but there's a little bit of a sample at the WBC last year. You talk to people who've like seen the NPB data and they're like, yeah, this guy like hits velo. He doesn't like nobody sees it a lot over there, but he does fare decent against it. That's why I'm like really excited to watch the WBC this year. It's I don't know how many like hard throwers on Australia and Korea there's going to be. I don't think Hyunjin Ryu is going to be pumping
Yeah.
98 on the black against this guy, but hopefully he gets like a shot against some big leaguers. We can see it. I think like I'm like not a hitting coach. I didn't play baseball after high school. I'm not like locked in on the mechanics, but you watch him swing and I see why the Jays and other teams had confidence that this guy could hit. It's a really smooth swing. There's like not really a hitch in it. He's very direct to the baseball and he covers like the entire plate really well. Watching live at bats, watching the games, like I see why people are confident, but like we got to see it in real meaningful games too.
I wonder too, I mean, kind of going back to when they sign him, obviously they bring him in at the beginning of January, just as the new year arrives, and kind of the Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker stuff is all unfolding, and they hold the introductory press conference for him and say that he's going to be a utility player. Obviously that kind of doesn't seem like that's going to be the case as you mentioned earlier, but like kind of with that comment, like I mean, do you think that there's a possibility that we see him getting time in a position that's not first or third base at all?
Not this year. Like maybe there's some like funky stuff. This team has like so many outfielders. Like they could carry like nine outfielders. So I think it's I my read is when they said that at the intro press conference, it's because Kyle Tucker was still on the board. And that's probably around the time where they had just found out that Tony was gonna likely have surgery. And so they're realizing that they kind of have an outfield need. They start pushing a little more on Tucker, I believe, as I reported around that time. And so that if like they sign Tucker, you're then bumping Barger back to third base, and so you're gonna have to move Okamoto around more to get him in the lineup, whether that be left field, more first, more DH time. That those factors just like aren't in play as much anymore. Like there is Jesus Sanchez has been brought in as kind of like a Tony replacement, but he's really just like a platoon bat who can play left and right. And if Okamoto's hitting, you're not taking him out of the lineup for Jesus Sanchez. But I do think long term, they will probably use his versatility more. Let's say like George walks after this year, the DH spot opens up. I think it'll be a lot more of a rotation, unless like Okamoto wins a Gold Glove at third base this year. And why are you moving him? But I think it's likely more of a rotation between third, first, and DH for him, and then first and DH for Vlad. So they would move him around a lot more long term. But with Springer in the mix, you don't really have the DH spot these days.
What was your sense about his defense? Because that's obviously the big question. And, it was only a limited sample that we saw before he went off to, represent Japan at WBC. But he looked comfortable there, but it's hard to tell in such a small sample exactly what his kind of vibe was there. So I'm wondering if you got a better kind of gauge on it.
Yeah, I think just from like watching him take ground balls a lot, like he does look really comfortable. Like he seems to have pretty good hands. He has like an okay arm. I think like a playable arm there. My question is like he's a big boy. Like he is like a Troy Gloss style third baseman. And so then the range comes into question. We haven't seen him tested too much in games, or obviously they're not like hitting diving ground balls and for him in kind of practice sessions. That will be my question for him once like you can't control where the hit is coming at you in the second inning on April 14th. Does he have the range to get to one that it's kind of on his cup? I think that is kind of the lingering question to watch for in the rest of the spring games and the WBC and into the season.
So we talked about, entering spring training and Okamoto kind of being your most interesting storyline to follow. I wonder once you arrived there and once you kind of got talking to people and being around the team a little bit, what was the storyline that popped up for you that really kind of piqued your interest once you were down there and things kind of got underway?
Yeah, a couple. I could go a couple directions here. I'll
Yeah.
rattle them off. First one, when I got down there, I kind of like around this time every year, I'm like, okay, where are like the potential pain points on this roster? If one guy gets hurt, where are they not deep enough? Or like, who is then competing? Where is there kind of like an open second, third string spot? The middle infield is was certainly a question there. I think Leo Jimenez, Josh Kusevic, and I guess no longer Ben Cowles. There was a brief moment where Ben Cowles was in the mix there, but those guys are like were the guys to watch for me in spring training because Jimenez, who was injured a lot last year, gets hurt. Ernie goes down. Even Okamoto goes down. Like you're probably calling up one of those guys, and that's like they're kind of 40-man depth guys on the bubble. Like they didn't even protect Josh in the Rule 5 draft, so that's seemingly a thin spot now. Josh has played well in spring training games. Leo's going to the WBC and could play well for Panama. They could kind of play that depth issue away for the Jays, which would be great for Toronto. Another thing kind of similar is like the rotation is very, very deep in terms of like they have 8 established guys, but the fact that like Eric Lauer has been pretty adamant that he wants to start and is looking like the seventh or eighth starter right now, and he's honestly said that like he hasn't said it frustrated him, but it's like clearly frustrating him that he's like after what he did for the team last year, after the team took him to ARB, after and he claims he lost his case because he was put in the bullpen. That was like an interesting tidbit of drama. But even beyond that, the kind of a similar situation in starters 9, 10, 11, 12 for me in the Jays. It's a very interesting spot for the Jays. They used 15 starters last year. You're going to need these guys, or else you're signing your Spencer Turnbulls of 2026. And that's guys like Grant Rogers, CJ Van Eyck, Gage Stanifer, if he really like kind of has a good start to the year. Chad Dallas and Adam Macko are maybe more like once and Lazaro Estrada are like once through the order, kind of like piggyback guys, and so those guys are the guys to watch. Like if the Jays are gonna need a couple of those guys to start this year, and it's like, okay, who is like this year's Estrada, this year's I don't know, Eric Lauer for me? Like who figuring those guys out was an interesting thing to watch in spring.
It kind of leads you right into the Max Scherzer of it all, with him coming back officially yesterday, I believe. Kind of they announced it and him set to start a spring training game this weekend. What did you make of that move, and how do you kind of think that this rotation comes together by opening day with all these different options of guys who you figure would be starting pitchers rather than bullpen guys?
It's still that's the question I gotta figure out. I don't know if the Jays know the answer right now. I'm sure they have some sort of plan, but it's gonna be funky. Like Max Scherzer, he's faced hitters multiple times. He has starting a spring game around at the beginning of March, like that's a schedule where that guy can be ready for opening day. And I think like I thought there was a decent I thought for about like a month now that there was a decent chance that Scherzer was coming back. And ultimately they made it work. But I think the pain point or the reason I wasn't like 100% sold is like how does this work?
Yeah.
Like are they gonna have to trade someone out? Is someone hurt they're not telling us about? And they haven't made a trade yet, and no one's been announced as injured yet. Yeah, they're slow playing a Savage, and so there are some like potential elements there, but like the next foot hasn't dropped, and so it's like, okay, you got 8 starters. What the heck happens here now? And I think like despite Max being ready, maybe they bump him back a bit. Obviously, Bieber missing the first month or so of the season will help them sort this out, but I I honestly don't know. I wish I had a good answer to this question of who the 5 guys on opening day are going to be. I don't know. And we got a couple weeks to figure it out.
You mentioned Bieber briefly. I mean, for Zach and I think that immediately there was kind of a bit of oh boy, maybe this is more than just arm fatigue. Do you get any sense that there's any fear around him and potentially what could be on the horizon and the Scherzer signing coming as a result of that?
Yeah, so my experience with the Shane Bieber arm stuff dates back to like December last year, where it got put on my radar that like he had some stuff. I was able to chase it down and write that he had, I believe I wrote forearm fatigue back then. And so that I didn't know then what it was going to be like coming into spring. Russ Atkins then gave some on the record quotes where he said that he was hoped he would be ready for opening day. Obviously, that is not now the case. I am under the impression now that like Shane is doing better now than some people thought he would be, than he certainly was at the end of last season and whenever he got his MRI that revealed this stuff. I don't think it's like gotten worse since spring has started. I think he's trending in the right direction. I don't think this is like a we're saying he's going to be ready 5, 6 weeks into the season and it's actually going to be like maybe we'll see you in August. I do think they're planning for him to come back. Now, forearm stuff for a guy who's had Tommy John recently, had a couple injuries in his forearm recently. It's never good news, but I don't think this is one of those like wait and see, we'll see how this goes situations like you see for a bunch of other guys.
For kind of him and I think of Trey Savage in kind of this same group where you're kind of uncertain for what they're going to be at the start of the year. How do you kind of view like what this rotation would shake out to be by say June when Bieber's back, and obviously so much can happen between now and then, but I mean kind of if things happen, best case scenario for the Blue Jays, is it really just going to be they're going to go, who the five guys who are pitching the best by that time?
I presume so. Like I think if let's say okay, I think I gotta list these out in my mind. Let me know who I'm forgetting here. There's Gausman, uh, Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Jose Barrios, Trey Savage, Eric Lauer, Cody Ponce, Max Scherzer.
Yeah,
Those are the eight.
yeah.
Those are the eight guys who have started big league games before, including Cody Ponce. Um, and I think like your best case scenario for the Jays is like all eight guys probably actually best case scenario realistically is like six of those guys are healthy in July. Two of them have minor injuries where it's like you're gonna get them back when rosters expand in September. It's that would be like a dream scenario for the Jays. But I think if all of them are healthy, you're probably rolling the best five. If that doesn't include Max, that's gonna be like a really, really uncomfortable conversation with him. I wonder if he would rather just go on the IL than get released or go on the IL rather than be go to the bullpen. I do wonder what the conversation would be like with him. But also there is like a potential like development list style IL stint for you Savage in here if he's like
Yeah.
pitching really well and racking up innings and you want to back him off around the All-Star break. Like there are ways to manage around this. It's just like if you have eight healthy starters, it's like a lot of managing to do.
It's gonna be so interesting to follow. I think, obviously the Scherzer news comes down and it's really cool to have this three-time Cy Young winner, future Hall of Famer in the mix. But it's just there's so many questions. But of course, as the
I do
saying
want to say
goes,
though, it's like it's good to have this many starters.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
if this is
exactly.
the biggest like talking point around the Jays
Yeah,
this time of year, you're in a pretty good spot. Like you want people like humming and hawing over who your six and seven starters are this time of year. You don't
yeah.
want them humming and hawing over like someone with a hurt foot or the lack of outfield depth or the fact that you don't even have five starters. Like this is a great problem to have, but I do still think it's fair to consider it a problem.
I mean, this is a problem that the Dodgers come in year in, year out, and I don't think they're complaining about it very much. But
Exactly. Exactly.
the other thing that you mentioned there is the Savage workload stuff, which we've kind of heard a lot about in the last couple of days about they're going to be very careful with him, going to be very cautious with him. If you were to kind of put a guesstimate on what his innings load would be, I mean, last year he came in, I want to say around the buck 40 mark or so. Do you see him surpassing that? Do you think they're going to really kind of slow play this and there's a chance he even comes in under that?
I think I think there's a chance he comes in under that because I think they'd probably want him sitting around that 140, 150 mark, banking in a potential playoff run after the season. I think the plan or my kind of reading in between the lines of the plan, I think they're kind of trying to treat him the same way they treated him last year, except his starts aren't going to come at five different levels. They're all going to come at the big leagues. Like they're going to slow play him. There's going to be some short outings in there. Maybe he had a break around the All-Star break last year. Maybe that happens again. Like I think they're probably like I don't think this is going to be okay, we're slow playing it, but there's a jump to 160, a jump to 170, because then what happens if he's at 161, the season ends, and then the playoffs start, and you go to the World Series again, and then suddenly Trey Savage just pitched 200 innings for you. I think with the beauty of this starting depth is that they don't have to push him. They can keep him around the 140, 150 mark. I think he's pretty content to be around that mark. I know guys want to pitch 200 innings, but like when you come off the high of pitching in the World Series and doing what he did, I'm sure it's a pretty easy sell to be like, we want to have you ready for that again. So buy into this plan and we'll have you ready for that. So I wouldn't expect like a really significant regular season jump from you, Savage.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
As we kind of, surge forward here in spring training, the Jays obviously losing so many guys to the World Baseball Classic, the whole infield, Alejandro Kirk, the potential to lose, Hoffman and Rogers to the US, if things kind of play out that way for the Americans. But of course, that leaves so many at bats, so many innings, so much playing time for the guys still in camp. Who are you most interested to see here over the next couple weeks as they try and fill those at bats and guys get a shot at staking their claim to extra playing time?
Yeah, I think Brendan Valenzuela is
Yeah.
one. Like he's got backup catcher of the future written all over him. This is a good little run for him to get used to all the pitchers who are going to be here long term, to really kind of ingratiate himself in like the preparation process at the big league level, the scouting reports, everything he's going to need when like inevitably he comes up for a 2 week stint because someone's hurt this year and moving forward. But then it's also the middle infield prospects like Arjun Namala. I really wonder if JoJo Parker gets himself into a game in the next couple of weeks here. I like he hasn't like played, so it would be a tough sell, but it would be cool. If
Yeah.
maybe in the what's it, the
The spring
spring
break.
breakout game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could see some JoJo Parker there. That'll be fun. But yeah, Arjun, I think is the guy to circle here. He looks so good at shortstop. Like he looks like he plays like a really good defensive shortstop to me in the couple times we've seen him already. And now he's going to get like a real run. And he's put on some weight. He seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulders. He's just like a really calm guy. And I think this is a big year for him. He's had kind of ups and downs. He's retained his prospect shine, but this is a year for him to like really take off and position himself as like if he has a good year this year, he could be knocking down the doors of the big leagues next year.
Yeah, he looks really comfortable out there at short. He made a nice play against the Yankees the other day. Even, yesterday against the Red Sox or maybe in the day before, he made a nice play as well. Like he's looked the part of a guy that's going to stick it short, which, I mean, you're not going to complain about that. That's a premium prospect potentially.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's like I don't know this for sure, but I gotta wonder if one of the reasons the Jays were so willing to let Bo go is A, because they knew they had this kind of short-term contingency plan with Andres Jimenez playing a really good shortstop, and then two long-term shots in JoJo Parker and Arjun Namala to have legit everyday shortstop potential. Like if Namala turns into a Willy Adames type, for a franchise that just like didn't have a shortstop for the longest time to go from Bo Bichette to Andres Jimenez to potentially that, like that's really important up the middle. And it's pretty easy to build a good team, or not easy. It's easier to build a good team around a shortstop like that. And I think this is the year to watch for Arjun, and hopefully it starts with a really good 2 week run here in spring when everyone else is off playing around the world.
Do you think he opens up in Double A, or do they send him back to Vancouver to start the year after kind of having the second half struggles?
I think he'll start in Vancouver
Okay.
again, I believe. I don't know one way or the other on that. Like I have some good ideas of where some guys are going to start. He's not one of them, but I do think it's weird. Like they really hate starting guys they want everyday run at Vancouver just because the weather is kind of like a crapshoot over there. Like they
Yeah.
specifically didn't start Trey there last year because of the weather, and then it just never rained in Vancouver the entire start of that season. They're all like, ah, shit. But that one worked out. It's not like they didn't get Trey Savage to the
Yeah.
big leagues because he
Yeah.
started in Dunedin. But it's not like the weather in the middle of New Hampshire is much better. So I think, given how last year ended, they probably start him in Vancouver and then let him try to get up to Double A pretty quickly.
What I'm hearing is that another trip to the Florida Complex League is the ideal start, just if we're basing it on the weather.
Like if I think if they could, if they had the talent level there, they would start every single person in Dunedin.
Pretty much. Uh, I mean, we've talked about Archie. You mentioned JoJo. Uh, I mean, we'll maybe get into this a little bit later, but prospect wise, we've talked a little bit about kind of the some of the guys knocking on the door. But are there any prospects specifically that you're really kind of eyeing up right now? Say outside of even necessarily the top 100 guys, the Savages, the Archons, and the JoJos.
Yeah, I'll give you two guys. I We got to talk to Grant Rogers a couple days ago. First off, what a lovely young man. Like, it's just like the nicest guy ever. That doesn't have the shine of having to talk to the media every 5 days. It hasn't worn him down at all yet. He was happy to talk to us. And he's just like such a fun pitcher. Like he's got so much Chris Bassett in him where it's like the stuff models are not gonna love this, but he's gonna throw seven different pitches, and if he puts in the right place, it's gonna work. He's gonna be able to navigate. Like got he hit Aaron Judge with one pitch and then got him to on a pretty easy pop out the next. I think if Jays fans would love those results in the big leagues from Grant Rogers.
Yeah.
And I think he's like got a shot to be like an innings eating, kind of like Lazaro Estrada was last year. It's like, okay, we have a hole here. We need innings. I think Grant Rogers could be that guy this year. Another guy, Javen Coleman. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I know he's on your guys' radar, but like the bullpen seems very deep for the Jays this year. But like, go look at this guy's numbers last year. He went from walking. He played on the same LSU team as Paul Skeens and was like the most unusable guy in that bullpen because he was walking like 15 guys per 9 innings and just could not throw in the zone. And then last year, he's like dominant and he was just like throwing in the zone, striking out a million people, owning the zone. I think when he gets like that next bump up this year to the mid minors, it'll be interesting to see how much of the low walk rate was because other people were chasing versus like him being in the zone. This will be an interesting challenge for him, but it's hard to fall in love with like low minors relief prospects. But
I
I'm pretty
find
excited
I
to
think
see.
we find it pretty easy.
Yeah,
To-
you guys do, but the general audience I don't think is going to get enthralled in these guys. But he's on my radar for sure.
it really makes you think of kind of the left-handed bullpen depth, and obviously as we approach opening day, it's Brendan Little, it's Mason Fluharty, Eric Lauer, if you want to put him in that group, and then kind of beyond that, there isn't a ton of left-handed, swing and miss coming up through the minors. I think Coleman, Kai Peterson are kind of those guys. I know you've kind of been at the front of like the Brendan Little renaissance that we've been seeing this spring training. What have you kind of made of that? And do you think that, this version of Brendan Little is the one that is going to walk out to the Rogers Center mound at some point in late March?
Yeah, I am interested to see if like he's going to show up on opening day with these four or five pitches again.
Yeah.
Like how much of this is the spring experiment, but like I talked to him, he was actually the first guy I talked to when I got in the Blue Jays clubhouse on the first day of spring because I'm like, okay, Brendan, like you had like a tough go last time I saw you. Like what was that about? And then like what are you changing? Because I knew he's the type of guy who would come in with some changes. And he was like he's really excited about these two new pitches, the fastball and slider. Like I was going back and forth with him and like, oh, like even if they're like 10% pitches, like that's pretty good because it keeps guys off other guys. He's like, no, they're like I think they're pretty good pitches. Like I think they can be 50 and they can be 20%. This is the new slider and the four seam fastball. And you see him in games. There's still like the spiked power curves every so
Yeah.
often. There's still like the zone issues, but he's not a guy who needs to throw in the zone 60% of the time. He just like can't be down at that 45% and have like the kind of telegraphed what he's gonna do. Like
Right.
if you're missing the zone and people know the curveball and the dirt is coming, that's a bad recipe to walk a lot of batters. And so I think just having these two couple wrinkles could really unlock him. I don't know if it's necessarily going to cut the walk rate significantly, but it could help the predictability he really suffered from last year.
Well, the velo especially is such an interesting development with him, right? Because last year, I don't know the exact numbers, but certainly wasn't sitting high 90s.
Yeah, but I think a large part of this is like Brendan Little pitched more relief appearances than any other reliever in the American League, and the fact you talk about kind of the lack of seeming left-handed depth, there's like a chance that that happens again. But I think the Jays are going to be really conscious of that this year, and they could tell that that really wore on him and ate away at the velocity. Like this guy was a former first-round pick. He has sat 98, 99, 100 before. Not sat, but he's touched up there before. It's clearly in the arm and attainable. And so I think if you just like use him a little less, if Mason Flaherty is on this team for a full season, if Eric Lauer can take some of those lefty at bats away, maybe you can get the best of Brendan Little for a little longer than we saw it last year.
What have you made of, the Rule 5 guys as we kind of talk about the bullpen mix? Like is there a way that they're going to be able to keep both Spencer Miles and Angel Bastardo, or are we going to see, one of them or neither of them maybe even crack the roster?
Unless like something happens, like if someone else gets hurt or if like someone really blows up in spring, I would be really shocked if they brought both of these guys. I just don't think
Yeah.
like you can be a World Series contender and start the season with two Rule 5 picks, even if you really like these guys. Like I think if they really like these guys, there's a better chance they approach the Giants or the Red Sox and say, "Hey, what does it take to give us the rights to these guys so we can send them to AAA?" I think that's a better chance than them both breaking camp. But you see why they took both these guys. The first time I saw Bastardo pitch, I forget who was against, but he like threw one in the dirt and then missed the zone with the next one, and then the third one was like a 99 on the black, just like beautiful pitch. And then he brought out, I think it's his changeup was the next pitch, and it's like, oh, you see it, it's like raw, but you see like why they like this guy. And Spencer Miles is kind of the same. The stuff models love this guy. He throws really hard. If he can fill the zone and stay healthy, you see a big league reliever there. It's just like they got a lot of arms. Like Tom, are you going to take one of those guys over Tommy Nance? Probably not. Like, are you going to send down both Braden Fisher and Mason Flaherty? Like, that would really suck for those guys. I get it from like a roster management perspective, but that would just really suck. If Eric Lauer like isn't in the mix by the end of the season, maybe or by the end of spring, maybe it gets a little easier to talk yourself into one of these guys. But I think they're definitely guys to watch, especially during this couple week stint where a bunch of guys are gone. But I wouldn't start buying your Bastardo and Miles jerseys just yet.
I mean, I think Miles was maybe a little bit more of like a known commodity coming in just based on, he had pitched more recently than Bastardo. Has either of them like emerged as a leader between the two of them for the opening day roster?
I know like before games started, there was like a buzz around Miles. Like
Yeah.
people inside and outside the organization were like, "Oh, this guy's like got good stuff." But honestly, like I haven't been down there for the last kind of week now, but watching from afar, I kind of think Bastardo's look pretty good in games. Like I think if I was making the roster based off the last couple of games I looked, I think I would have him above Miles. But there was like this buzz around Miles because he was like the new guy. They'd had Bastardo in the org for so long. You kind of like forget he's there because they rehabbed him. It's like we had a Rule 5 pick like 16 months ago. Like what the heck? Who's this guy? But I think from I really like what Bastardo's bringing just from watching from afar. But I couldn't tell you one way or another these days who's got the upper
Well,
hand.
I've seen the comp thrown out there, and he just walked last year, but there's a lot of Sir Anthony Dominguez in him. It feels like a lot of kind of velo, just kind of a not necessarily a back of the bullpen kind of staple, but a lot to like in terms of just the raw kind of what they bring.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the issue is that it's like there's a lot of really good relief prospects who got a lot of Sir Anthony Dominguez in them. There's a lot of guys who can touch 99, a lot of guys who have one really good off speed or breaking pitch. And then it's like, okay, what do you like if you're looking like this with some control issues in spring games and in like low leverage moments on our backfields? What happens when we throw you into the seventh inning against the Reds on April 15th in a tie game? Like, because we got no one else left the control issues probably aren't going to get better. Maybe for some like real sickos, they lock in those moments, but like the high stress moments don't usually make control better for guys. So it will be interesting to see if they like how they view the potential command issues there.
One thing I did want to ask you about was a great story you wrote at the beginning of spring with Kevin Gausman. I suggest everybody listening goes and reads it if you haven't already. It's titled "Blue Jays Kevin Gausman on Winning Family and what Might Be His Final Season." And I think the last part of that is kind of the notable part, right? Where a guy considering retirement or having had it cross his mind, who, was coming off this incredible postseason run and, is finishing up what has been one of the greatest free agent contracts in Blue Jays history. What did you kind of make of that conversation? And did that kind of catch you off guard at all that he was, kind of talking about being in that mindset?
Interestingly enough, it like didn't catch me off guard at all. Like I kind of went into that conversation being like, "Hey Kevin, I'm gonna have like my spring chat because you're a pending free agent. Let's talk about last year and talk about all this stuff." And then I asked him like, "What are your plans for next year? Like, is retirement on the table?" And he kind of went off on like why he's thought about it and why the reasons if he were to retire, like talking about family and wanting to be with his family and his kids are getting older, and all of those reasons that he I discuss in the article. I wasn't shocked by it because it's like I don't know like Kevin. I'm not friends with Kevin Gausman. I don't talk to him. I don't get beers with him. But just from afar, it's like he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's gonna like try to do what Max Scherzer's doing and like play forever. Like this guy, he plays baseball because he's really good at it, but he's also a really chill guy who loves his family and would just love to be at home with his family and do something else after this. Like he's not one of those guys who's like just addicted to the grind and doesn't know. Like he works very hard, but he does.
Yeah.
It's not like he can live without baseball. Kevin Gausman can. So I wasn't necessarily surprised. Like guys made a lot of money, and his kids are at the type of age where you start to think about these things, and so. I wouldn't be shocked if this year is Kevin Gausman's last year. I think Jays fans should really enjoy every one of his starts. Like you're right, he's been like underratedly one of the best modern Blue Jays pitchers. Like it's been pretty quiet because he hasn't gotten an opening day start, which I think he should definitely get this year's opening day start if he's healthy and firing. But yeah, enjoy Kevin Gausman this year.
For him as well, I mean, obviously he's, kind of in that same boat of coming off like this massive workload where, I think it was, what he led like all starting pitchers in innings pitched and starts made last year when you combine the postseason. How do you kind of think he's dealing with that, and is that really going to be an issue for him at all as he progresses throughout the year?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because this time last year, Gaussman's whole thing was he bulked up. He spent all off season kind of preparing to retain his velocity throughout the season and be a little bit sharper for longer compared to his previous season. Because 2024 was like not a great year for Gaussman. It wasn't like horrific, but it was kind of a down year for him, and he bounced back in a big way. I don't know if he's like had the time or the rest to do that same like extent of preparation, given the fact that the team played games in November. Like your body's just not going to be in. Speaking from someone who covered a game in November, my body is not in as good of a shape as it would have been had I had a longer off season. But
Yeah.
I think it will be interesting. I think it's like I don't expect you to see Kevin Gausman going 7 innings if he does start on opening day. I think they're going to be a little more measured. The fact that if Lauer does start in the bullpen, he's going to be like a huge part of the Blue Jays' first month. Maybe giving you 2 innings after Gausman, then 4 or 5 days later, giving you three after your Savage. Like he'll be really important to kind of help this team not have a really short bullpen in the opening month.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this and all the great info. It's always great having you on. Before we let you go, I did want to ask quickly. Obviously, you guys starting up the podcast, Kevin Pillar and Ricky Romero, Bluebird territory. How have you been enjoying that and getting to pick those guys' brains in an audio format?
Yeah, it's fun. I love it. Obviously, like those guys are huge in the Blue Jays community, and they also have like such interesting perspectives in that Ricky's a pitcher who had his really high highs and really low lows in the big leagues, and Kevin is like a 30 something round pick who clawed his way up and
Yeah.
was on like some of the best Blue Jays teams we've seen prior to last year. And so they bring a lot of really good stories and they bring some really good experiences that are good even on like the day to day to ask Ricky what he's seeing from Cody Ponce when he's watching the spring games and asking Kevin what he sees from Okamoto or how Varsho can like take his game to a next level. Like they bring a good mix of kind of like past stories and current analysis, and I'm just kind of there to keep things on the rails and ask the right questions and chip in every so often because I didn't play any big league games. So I'm it's been fun.
Yeah.
Feel free to give us a listen, subscribe to us on YouTube, please. I know you guys know that really helps podcasts out, but I I'll still come on. I'm not going to be an enemy of the show now. I'll still be a friend of the show. And unless you guys you guys really try to bury us in some podcast or something like that.
I
No
mean,
promises.
we are sorely lacking on the big league experience on this pod. So we appreciate you coming on, Mitch. It's always so great to have you on it and get your insight. Always love reading your work and following your reporting everywhere. And yeah, just adding the pod is another great way to keep up with you and Ricky and Kevin now. So appreciate you doing this today and hope you enjoy heading back down there to Dunedin and hopefully another fun season with this Blue Jays team.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always fun.
All right, that is Mitch Bannon, the Blue Jays beat writer at The Athletic and host of Bluebird Territory. You can find him at Mitch Bannon on Twitter. That is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter. And the pod is at BEV_pod. Thank you so much for listening.